My name is Suresh Verghese. I'm a leadership facilitator. I'm also faculty at Great Lakes Institute of Management, Chennai. And I have a corporate background, and currently I help leaders change behaviors to perform and succeed with work success as well as personal success. Sridhar?
Great, thank you, Suresh. Hi, this is Sridhar Krishnan, specializing in the IT services industry, where I do a whole lot of digital consulting, mostly focused on the energy industry. But I've been in this business 25 years in various sorts of leadership roles across a few different countries, across a few different levels of leadership as well. And I've also been in the corporate L&D space. That's me, and I am based in Bangalore.
Ravi?
Thank you. Good morning, all. I'm Ravi Bhuttapuri, here based in Chennai. I'm now a corporate training and learning facilitator. I also mentor managers. Have a background in IT, but for the last 10 years, I've been conducting workshops and helping people in their professional lives. Thank you.
GNR?
Yeah, my name is G.N. Radhakrishnan, commonly known as GNR. That's the way people call me. I'm a visiting faculty at Great Lakes Institute of Management, and I also do a lot of training in the education sector, especially schools. That's what I do.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I worked in the corporate for about 16 years, and the last about 30 years I've been consulting and training.
I had sent 3 sample topics for us to discuss for the benefit of viewers of this particular video. In a normal sense, a moderator would actually put out one and say, let's discuss this. But since all of us are very good in building consensus, even in our training programs, may I ask, which one of those 3 would you like to talk about?
I think the second one looks very interesting, very
absolutely, yeah.
provocative, I would say. How do you handle a boss who's insecure and untrusting?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Suresh, you described most bosses.
Yeah.
No,
JNR, are you good with that?
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Sridhar, okay?
Okay.
Absolutely. I think it is a very provocative topic.
Okay.
It has broad relevance with a lot of it. So, yeah.
Okay, so let's take a swipe at it. And so the question here is, and this is a typical participant question that can come to any of us, and I'm sure has come to each of us in any of the programs that we have done, which is, how do I handle a boss who is very insecure and untrusting? Now, this can come across in the body language of the boss. It can come across in the words that the boss puts out, or in some very subtle dynamics as well. And what it does is it puts the employee or the team member on guard. It makes the team member feel that he has to put on a mask sometimes, or talk very guardedly, and so on. So what is it that each of us would tell such a person who brings up such a question in a training program? So I'd like to approach it that way. What do you think? Who would like to go first?
I can go first.
Yes, Ravi.
The reason I am so eager to start off this topic is because it happened recently. One of the managers I'm mentoring had this very same concern. And knowing a little bit about that participant, that mentee, I started with the words untrusting, insecure, and all that as their adjectives. And we are labeling that boss that way. And I asked him to take a step back and ask himself, why is he labeling his boss that way? And not to take away his perceptions or disrespect his views, but I said, we all have our concerns and priorities. So if your boss has certain things that you're not aware of, it may come across through your prisms and your filters as insecure or untrusting. Can you find out more? So I started with that. Can you find out more? Can you approach this problem with, I don't know enough? Can you be more curious? That's what I started with.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from the others.
Yeah, JNR or Sridhar, one
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah, sure. Picking a thread from what Ravi said. I actually had a boss like that. Typically very insecure and very untrustworthy, but a tremendous achiever, highly achievement oriented, and he also had this thing of being one up. He would always like to be one up. You know, if you say something, he'll say something else and then say, "Hey, I'm better than you." You know, he had a very the way I mean, and everybody found it very difficult. Um, the way I did it and I thought it worked was I just accepted him as he is. I said, my job is not to change him. My job is to get along with him, and he was my direct boss, and do my work as effectively as possible. Well, he will show these things. Just accept him. Don't keep focusing on, oh, he's insecure, oh, he's. So I did that. Actually, I did that, and believe me or not, that after a few months, our relationship really built, and he started becoming more trusting in his approach to me. And a day came, maybe 6 months down the line, I could even give him a negative feedback. You know, he was so I'm forced, but not to do very casually. I mean, very carefully. I had to ask him, sir, do you think I can suggest something to you? Yeah, Radha, go ahead. Yeah, do it. He'll say, to set right his insecurity. That's the outlook with which I approach the whole relationship.
Okay. That's very
Sridhar?
nice, Janar.
You're muted.
Yeah, you're on mute, Sridhar.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that. I've encountered some of that myself. I would tend to look at this topic at two layers. I mean, there is the one aspect of what makes anybody insecure, right? And then the second layer is bring in the boss subordinate angle into that. So if you have an insecure boss, then what do you do about it?
Little louder, Sridhar.
Okay, yeah, sure. So in terms of the first aspect, right, what makes anybody insecure? Obviously, there isn't one consistent definition to it, but I find it the one framework that I actually found quite instructive to use in analyzing anybody that is insecure. There's this business of this fixed mindset and growth mindset that I think was introduced by Carol Dweck, right? And she talked about what constitutes fixed mindset and why are fixed mindset people typically insecure. And once you're able to use something like that to frame up a problem statement, then you can look at it in terms of, okay, great, if this insecure person were your boss, then what are you going to do about it, right? But at least you understand what drives that. Obviously, I mean, it's different things with different people, but when you talk about a typical, someone that has got a fixed mindset, it may be perhaps you have a person there that does not take very kindly to competition. People that do not believe in, for example, that they can grow their own capabilities, their own skills, regardless of where they are, regardless of what stage of their career they are in. Or people that may be emotionally insecure for whatever reason, right? Somebody that's got a growth mindset, that is open to criticism, open to feedback, open to new skills, open to learning, etc., is not going to be insecure. But someone who is the opposite of that will be insecure. But if you can analyze it in that fashion, then you can start to answer the question of what are you going to do about it, right? If this person is from my own limited experience, I think fortunately in my case at least, I haven't had very many bosses that in 25 years that sort of have been in that mold. But at least one that I can think about that goes back a couple of decades. What worked for me was, as long as I am conscious about a couple of hygiene habits here in terms of a relationship. One, do not put yourself or put your boss in a position where you're showing him or her up. That tends to make your boss even more insecure in their behaviors, right? And that includes working around your boss and engaging with their senior stakeholders, etc., etc. Right? So if you can avoid that and manage everything through your boss, you're better off. The second aspect of typically what works with it is what can you consciously do to make that person look successful. And if you are working in the interest of yourself and your boss and where that convergence is, and if you can make him or her look successful, then you've got, then you can sidestep this whole emotional angle of insecurity and so on and so forth. It tends to become a non-issue. That's what my experience is.
So when I put out the topic, I also did remember, and when all of you just said, I also did remember that out of the 4 bosses, I've had probably more, but out of the 4 bosses I had, at least one I remember as being insecure and untrusting. Probably less insecure, but maybe more untrusting in the transactions that I've had. The insecurity, I guess he was not very insecure, but probably more untrusting. And that comes across in the body language, as I said, and it also kind of puts you on guard as well. So one of the things that I found could work is, as you said, Sridhar, not to make it more difficult for the boss to, be open and, sort of go along with the flow. The second is, after rapport has been built up, like JNR said, over a period of time, you're lucky if you build up that sort of a trusting rapport in 6 months. But for many, it takes at least a year sometimes to build up that rapport with different repetitive experiences, and only consistent experiences will help build that trust. Then, of course, be open with the boss and give the boss opportunities to have open conversations by first being open yourself and displaying your vulnerability, so to speak, or to ask for feedback and to appreciate that feedback and say thank you for the feedback. Ask for specific feedback on specific things rather than just was it good, was it okay, and you just get a yes, which means really not much. So asking for specific feedback helps the boss to understand that that feedback that the boss gives is valued and respected and is needed and is important by the employee, by the person who has this issue. And that helps to build confidence in the boss. So often it's not just for our team members, but it's also upwards, because they need appreciation and recognition upwards as well. And often we don't realize it, or individuals don't realize that bosses also need appreciation, recognition, acknowledging those positive strokes as often as is needed, because they might have more pressures or bigger issues on their mind as well. And they might have a boss who's probably not being helpful in the whole process as well. So all the more reason, if it's possible, to understand that. Of course, it depends on the level of the team member who has this issue. The more junior, the more difficult probably. The more senior and more mature, the easier probably. But yeah, by and large, it's good to make it easier for the boss and to help open up the boss by asking for feedback and having conversation on the sidelines, maybe informal coffee table, coffee maker, water dispenser conversations, kind of a thing. Sort of informal conversations so that the ice is broken and the boss sees you also in a less formal atmosphere, more, to reduce the insecurities and things like that. Great. Any takes on this further? Anybody?
Yeah. Another thing, when that it may be a projection. It may be projection. When I say projection, my insecurity, my untrust issues sometimes projected on the sides, namely the boss. So it might even be good for the participant to take a feedback from their subordinates. How trustworthy and how secure am I? I think I'm very secure. I think I'm very trustworthy. But do they perceive it the same way? Is something very important, because It may be just you are projecting that. I think they should have the courage to take that feedback from their subordinates.
Absolutely.
Great.
That's a good point,
Okay.
absolutely.
If I may add a little bit to what Sridhar said in terms of our behaviors. Yeah, great point, Jana. If I may add to what Sridhar said about not making the matters worse by not showing them up. One of the things I found is some leaders become insecure when they see you having a great rapport with other leaders in the company. It has happened to me many times. I'm not going to stop being who I am, right? I still network. I still get along with a lot of people. Just because my boss is insecure, it's not going to stop me. But what I did was very consciously never carried tales, never dropped names, never divulged any confidential information, never played games like that. And so my boss knew that if anyone ever said anything to me, it would not go anywhere else. And that included him. So I think our behaviors can allay some of their insecurities if we are careful and conscious about it. So I think that's one of the things that occurred to me when I heard Sridhar say what he just did.
Wonderful.
Like
Okay.
picking up a thread from Ravi's statement, I had a boss who was a graduate, and I had an engineering degree and an MBA from XLRI. So somewhere this was a feeling. Somewhere I think he had that problem. But what I tried to consciously do, I don't know how successful I was, I never played that MBA card. You know, any discussions when I was having with them, I restrained using any jargon, any words which are, MBA sounding and can put off the person. So I was I don't know if I was successful or not, but I could feel that he was a very good salesman. He was general manager sales. He was a fantastic salesman. He could really walk in and do that. And he had grown up the ladder through the sheer work. But this was an issue, and I sometimes felt from his conversation he had a feeling that, oh, you're an MBA. So I was very careful about not trying to play that, as Ravi was saying, that show anything that outwardly to say that, hey, I am an MBA, you're not a MBA. And sometimes these can flare up the whole situation, and it can spiral into something. So one has to be careful about that part also. If by any chance you're qualified better than the boss.
And that's a common thing, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times we are more qualified than our boss. Yeah.
Yeah. And we tend to sometimes, unknowingly or knowingly, I'm not even saying that we might do it knowingly. In our eagerness, we'll throw a jargon, or Johari window, and then, you think you're trying to maybe do that, and the guy says, oh, Johari, I don't know. So this can slightly aggravate the condition that, already exists.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Very nice.
Great. So that was fantastic.